I'm here in the parking lot by Ralph's on Warner by Bolsa Chica. Today, I'm concerned about getting hit by a car. 40 years ago, I would have been concerned about getting hit by a plane. I'll tell you why in just a minute. I'm Chris Epting. I'm a writer and a storyteller, the author of several books and many articles about Huntington Beach. And what I like best is uncovering history that you may not be familiar with. This is Hidden Huntington Beach. Back in the mid-1940s, there was a small, privately owned landing strip near what today is Warner Avenue and Bolsa Chica Street called East Long Beach Airport. In 1952, it was sold to a local Japanese-American family, the Nerios. It was renamed Sunset Beach Airport in the mid-1950s, and then renamed again in the early 1960s, becoming Meadowlark Airport. The Nerios managed the airport until it closed in 1989 in the face of rising neighbors' complaints and commercial opportunities. Author and aviation historian G. Pat Macha was there often, along with his son Pat Jr. They joined me at the site today to reveal some hidden history of Meadowlark Airport. So it's amazing having a father-son team here who knows so much about the old Meadowlark Airport. Tell me, what would have been here right now? Where are we standing exactly in terms of what was here?
This is where the famous Meadowlark Airport Cafe was, right behind us. Really famous for its hamburgers and the weekend breakfast crowds. And so this is a center point of the entire field right there.
You came here when you were a little kid, right?
And ever since my dad brought me, my folks brought me when I was a baby in 1968, when I was born.
What do you remember about the airport? You started coming here a long time ago.
Right, back in the 60s, it was just a charming place to come to. It was uncontrolled. You could walk out among the airplanes and nobody said, "Hey, get out of there, guy." And you could talk to pilots that were here, maybe working on their planes or getting ready to fly, and they'd be more than happy to share info about their aircraft. And I got a few rides that way. They said, one guy said, "I'm just gonna go up do a couple of pattern to stay fresh. You want to ride?" I said, "You bet." I got into a Piper Tri-Pacer and away we went.
What was the mood like here? It really feels like a community center, not just because of the cafe, but like you say, the camaraderie with the pilots. It was very local. There were no lights here, right? So it was really only a daylight airport.
Well, there were some lights, but yes, it was daylight operations only, but that didn't stop people from coming in at night occasionally. And one fellow we know, when he came in one night to land, he was late. As he came in, his landing light illuminated a helicopter and another airplane sitting on the runway. They saw him and moved. He went back around in the pattern and landed safely.
Well, you guys were coming here. The airport was owned by the Nerio family.
The Nerio
Did
family.
you know them well back then?
I can't say we knew them well, but I saw Art Nerio all the time on his bicycle.
Okay, the bicycle, so that's real. He would always pedal out.
He's on the bicycle. He's going up and down the lines and around the field. He would always say hi. He was a man of few words. We would always say hi, but we never really talked about it.
But he would also, when a plane would land, wouldn't he go up on his bike to get to collect the landing fee as well, right?
The landing fee, unless you bought your lunch or breakfast at the airport, you waived that landing fee. Or if you bought fuel, you waived the landing fee. You didn't have to pay it.
What are some of your more memorable flights here? Can you remember a couple of examples of taking off or landing here that were special?
I remember when I got to go on Greg Vucevic's biplane as a World War II biplane, and I got a surprise chance to fly around the pattern in it. I'll never forget it. And as we were taxiing down towards the church, a Stearman biplane came roaring down with smoke on it. And it was just a little country airport, and who knows what's going to happen on any given day. So that's a memorable time for me.
How about you, Pat?
It was, because it was unregulated, all sorts of little things could happen. High-speed flybys occasionally. And not everybody around here loved the airport or airplanes,
right.
But it had that nostalgic, out in the country feel in a metropolitan area.
And there were characters here too, right? The one I always hear about is Bob Cannon, AKA Banner Bob. What was he like? What was his story here?
Well, he had the banner towing business, right. Sign towing. So Banner Bob. And so Meadowlark had two runways, basically, a V. The only one people were to use was the main runway, but there was kind of an east-west. So when he did his banner pickups, he would pick up on this east-west, tag it, fly out to the west, go on. When he came in to land, he would come in and drop it right over this same area. but occasionally pilots would sneak in and land on this east-west and even take off on the east-west.
Wow.
And that was always exciting to see.
And there were also, in addition to the characters, I mean, look, it's an airport, so there were a number of accidents here as well.
Yes.
Some of which you were here to witness just coincidentally, right?
Right, yes. And unfortunately, there was one fatal accident off the airport property on takeoff.
When was that?
A Cessna 150 back in the 70s, and that killed one person.
Nearby, right?
Yeah, nearby, across the
In the
road.
Bolsa Chica wetlands.
Yeah, Bolsa Chica, the headlands there, it's developed on now. But there were numerous undershoots and overshoots. And in one case, a pilot had come in and he hit the top of a car and bounced off. And there was a man sitting in the car watching the air traffic. He was in a big old white Oldsmobile. It crushed the passenger side. He was in the driver's seat. He was unhurt. The airplane spun off, tore a wing, and the pilot wasn't injured. So you had things like that happen.
When you guys stand here today and you look out, what do you see? If you sort of let your mind drift back, give me a sense, paint the picture of what we would have been looking at, say, 50 years ago, looking in that direction toward the runways.
Well, you'd see all the planes parked around the apron. When I'm here right now, I like to say, well, those buildings across the street, they were there. And I like to imagine the Nereo house right here where the restaurants are.
Where was the fuel pumps were over here?
The fuel pumps would have been right about where it says Harbor Dental. And you know, the planes parked. There was planes parked all around where these townhouses were right there as well. There was a Quonset hut parked right there.
When you pull in today off of Warner, can you picture the iconic blue Meadowlark Airport sign? Because that's really, to me, one of the great pieces of signage in Huntington Beach history.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, when you hear all the stories of people just seeing the sign, turning in there. I think it's called Airport Circle now.
Yes.
When you come in here, it wasn't just airplanes that were here, right? The Goodyear blimp made an occasional visit.
It sure did. Tom Mattis would come in during the day and make an approach, get in the pattern, come down the runway and drag the lines on the ground and then pull up. And when he pulled that thing up, it was at an angle like this. And at night, occasionally, he would come in all illuminated. He'd get into the pattern. He would come in and drag the lines again and pull up. It was fantastic.
What, you guys were here when the airport closed down in the late 1989, was it?
August of '89.
August of '89, yeah.
You described a ceremony or an event that took place that day to sort of usher it out, right?
And that day, I spent the entire last 3 days. Planes would just come in and zip in and out, making high-speed takeoffs, go back around one more time and shoot down that runway, and then they go off to their next airport, like at Corona Airport or Chino or Long Beach, wherever
Or
they had to be
you'd
located.
have 2 or 3 in formation come over. They'd make flybys. And when the airport was officially closed, they put the X's on the runway, but people were still making flybys. And
Really?
the police helicopter would hang out around here to chase people away.
Well, what happened the last day? Was there, I mean, you took some video, right, of what it was like. What did you see that day?
Little by little, the planes trickling away, the field opening up, just hard to stand. You know, you almost couldn't stand watching it as the field became open with no planes parked on it until there were just 2 or 3 derelicts that had to be trucked off. But it was a huge throng of people all over here, parking and seeing the last takeoffs. And in my video, you can see a bunch of cars jammed at the end of the runway right over there. It was just terrific. It was a tremendous farewell.
I remember asking you recently about any celebrity pilots that might have flown in and out of here. This is back when celebrities were getting a lot of pilot's licenses. Do you remember anyone who flew in and out of here back when you used to come here?
There were a few people, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford, he had come in here.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you shared that somewhat related to Harrison Ford, some cinematic history took place here at the airport. This blew me away. I'm supposed to know this stuff. I never heard this before. So why don't you share the story with us?
Well, on the Facebook site for Meadowlark Airport,
Which is a great page, by the way.
Bob Cannon, who ran the sign towing business, like we said, he happened to mention, oh, I finally watched Indiana Jones. Everyone was talking about it. This is like last week, and that movie's 40 years old. And he goes, that reminds me, these guys from Hollywood asked if they could come down and film a scene with one of my red biplanes, my Stearman biplane. And I didn't know what they were doing, and I was too busy, I didn't even stick around. Well, they were filming the snake in the cockpit scene with Harrison Ford saying, "I hate snakes, Reggie, I hate them."
So that happened here?
Right over there at the end of this strip mall, basically.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was amazing.
In the mid-1980s, the Machas witnessed a memorable crash at Meadowlark Airport. It happened about a block away, and the office complex the plane struck is still there today. We went back to the exact site where they shared their memories of that fateful day. So what does it feel like to be here today, right where the plane crash happened back in the mid-1980s? I mean, you raced over here from the cafe, right?
We did.
What was it like? How chaotic was the scene?
It was chaotic. It was amazing to me that as we got up to run with several other people, many people went right back to eating their breakfast.
Like it was nothing.
Like nothing. And it looked initially like there was fire because when they went through the plate glass, they hit all the ceiling tiles, all that dust from the tiles came out the window. There was no smoke, but it appeared initially like there could be fire.
And everybody walks away from this.
Everybody walks away, it's a miracle.
Now you had your camera with you.
Always,
you were always shooting
always
at the
had it.
airport.
Always
So
had
you
it.
come out here, you're probably taking some of the first photos of the accident, right?
Right.
There were later photos. This was a pretty big news story.
Yeah.
Remember, it was in the papers and you can look
Right.
it up, and it was actually, just I think the image of a plane sticking out of a building
Sure.
is always gonna sell papers, right?
Yes.
So, and you remember this as well?
Yeah, we were in the restaurant together, all four of us, Mom and my sister Heather, and Dad gets out of his chair and he yelled, "He's not gonna make it! He's not gonna make
Did
it!"
you have a sense before the crash that
Yes.
something was wrong? What gave you that idea?
He was too slow, too low, and gonna stall. So I knew this was gonna end badly. I thought it was gonna be a fatal. Miraculously, it was not.
And then you all rush out together to get over here?
Yes, and there's some stairs on the side there, and I saw these guys up there with a crowbar working the door.
How old are you at this point?
I was probably about 15 or 16, and I wouldn't let my son do it because there was gas everywhere. But I scampered up there and I waited for the guys to break open the door, and with their crowbar that they had got in their car, and we raced in there. And here's the nose of the plane sticking through the cubicles, dust and everything in the air. And then sure enough, there was the gas coming out of the gas tanks. They started pulling their way through the wreckage. The other guys were helping, and the occupants were coming through. And the son was dazed. He was about my age, about 16. And he goes, "Wait a second, I gotta go back and get my sunglasses out of the plane." I said, "Forget that. There's gas everywhere. Let's get out of here." And he goes, "Oh, all right, okay." And I led him by the arm and got him out the
He was
door.
in shock, you bet.
So.
You have an artifact from a plane from a different crash that took place nearby, right? Not this one, but one in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
This is a different one that I witnessed where the pilot accidentally took off downwind. It is the wheel cover from a World War II Stearman biplane. There was a Santa Ana wind. I was here after college, the wind switched. He didn't notice the windsock come around to off the ocean, and he took off downwind towards Heil. I almost ran over to the plane and said, "Hey, look at the windsock." I thought, he's going to be annoyed.
So where does he come down exactly?
So he barely crosses Heil. He hits a pine tree just in front of those homes there.
Those pine trees.
And all this pine dust flew off. The plane fluttered into the alley and missed a guy who was working on his boat. It just missed him. Went through the wall, almost went into the pool. Those guys kind of got out dazed and knocked around, but they walked away with just a bad cut on the head of one of them.
And you walked away with part of
And
the plane.
when they were salvaging, I got to hang out at the house because the kid there that lived at the house was my age. And I kind of said, "Hey, mister, is there anything you guys don't want?" And he goes, "You can have this." And he tossed me the wheel cover for it. Wow. And this is from January of 1989, the year it closed in August of 89.
Great artifact.
Yeah, the Zeus fittings there for the indicative of something on an airplane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Guys, thank you so much. This has been incredible. It really has. There's nothing like going to an exact spot with experts, with people who were there, as an expert and historian, firsthand witnesses, right? There's nothing better. And
We're really glad to be here with you, Chris.
well, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
It's been interesting.
Appreciate it.
It's locals like this that make this kind of hidden history possible. I want to thank you for watching. I really want to thank you guys today.